Hello, my name is Celine and I'm from Toronto. I'm a woman who wears many different hats. I'm a longtime public federal servant, about 25 years of service. I am also a researcher at one of Canada's university, specifically in the area of human and social sciences, even more specifically theology, and even more precisely, youth ministry. My current work is focusing on the attrition of youth in the church and whether or not spiritual care practice or pastoral care might play a preventative or restorative role in that attrition. I recently became an entrepreneur after launching my personal natural skincare line for both men and for women. I am also a minister within the Apostolic Faith tradition, and I also work in ministry within the Anglican faith tradition, though myself I'm not Anglican. I am a child, youth, and family minister there at a local Toronto diocese. In addition to all of that, I am a mother and am also a caregiver. My journey has been going on for about 35 years, lots of hills and valleys, and I have to say that the most pivotal moment in that 35-year span took place in 2018 when I was pursuing my second Bachelor of Theology degree, and one of the courses was based in the Middle East physically, so I had to physically go there. And this was during a very dry period in my spiritual life because I was so centered on my academic pursuits that I lost the distinction between pursuing knowledge and pursuing a personal relationship with Christ. It got lost along the way. And while there, we visited the Western Wall as a personal trip. This is outside of the lectures. And I had brought some prayer requests with me to stuff into the wall because that's what you do when you bring the requests. And my intention was to stuff those requests into the wall, say a prayer, and then leave. So I had become somewhat ritualistic, and I knew that. And after I laid my hands on the wall to just say a quick prayer, something got a hold of me. I cannot explain what happened. Words cannot articulate what took place. All I can tell you is that moments later, I found myself hands and head down to the ground as God was just pulling me apart. He was stripping away much of what I thought I knew. And I just found myself weeping. And it took one of my professors to come and get me. I felt a soft, gentle rub on my back. I went there identifying as a Pentecostal because that's what you're taught to do, to identify with your worldview. But I left there identifying as a follower of Christ, period. My eyes were open to the segregation that is enforced by denominationalism. And I left with the intention to come back and serve God outside of man-made contexts. I understand why denominationalism exists, but at the same time have no appreciation for the segregation that is caused by it. Out of that obedience to God, I have found myself someplace where I never expected to. I mean, ministry was birthed out of it. When I went back to Toronto to move on to my next master's degree, there was an opportunity for me to accept a 2-year contract with the Anglican Church to work in child, youth, and family ministry. But because there was also a 2-year practicum included in the Master of Divinity program, I saw it as an opportunity to, kill two birds with one stone. So again, my mind was still somewhat academically oriented, and I never dreamt that this was all part and parcel of what God had in store for me. And I questioned it initially because I said, Lord, I'm not Anglican, so I really don't see how this can work. But there was an amazing opportunity to literally just forsake everything I thought I knew. So I was continuing on that path. And I've come to realize over the years, more than ever, that a plant that can thrive in outside of an environment that is conducive to its nature is a plant that is made to live. And I became that plant because I was in a place of complete and total unfamiliarity. So I had no choice but to depend on God. And 7 years later, I am still there. Towards the end of the 2 years, the church asked me to please stay because I did not know that they had an issue with a massive generational gap. And so that church was literally on its deathbed because there were no youth, there were no young people, no married couples, just older people. And I've seen how God has used me and has continued to use me to turn that around. Sometime after that, I became appointed as a minister within my home church. My late pastor expressed how proud he felt about me or of me because I was able to venture outside of our context and not be changed negatively by what I saw, but to allow spiritual development to take place. And beyond that, again, so much more has come out of that. I would need to do a separate video to tell you, but all I can really say is that I don't view my walk with Christ the same, and ministry has just become something completely different from what I imagined before I started practicing it. One of the biggest challenges or obstacles I have faced in my 35-year walk with Christ is myself. And three main things, two that are related and one that's unrelated. Growing up without a father, no fault to my father, no fault to my mother either. It was very challenging for me to see myself as a child of God. Without an earthly father, this concept of a heavenly father was just very difficult for me. And while I know it's not a concept, it is truth that once you accept Jesus Christ, you are his. The not having that basic foundation just made it impossible. And so I saw myself more as a servant of God as opposed to a child of God. While I understand that everybody is unworthy, I saw myself as being particularly unworthy. So it's not just the absence of my father, but I was very scrupulous in nature, just very critical of myself, and the perfectionism and the need for independence also got in the way because life had just always been very challenging. So I'd always been forced to do everything by myself, do it on my own. So relying on God, depending on God, it was hard. And because I did not see myself as God's child and more so as his servant, I was not as intimate with him as I needed to be. There were things I did not share with him because in my eyes, you don't share this with somebody you're serving. And so I held on to things and tried to deal with them on my own until finally I couldn't hold it together anymore. And I mustered up the courage to have a talk with my late pastor, and he really helped me to see that God really loves me. I mean, really, really loves me despite everything he knows about me. I really am his child, nothing less. And having overcome that, I've been able to have a deeper walk with God. My encouragement to women who are still in the waiting, you're not sure, you're waiting for clarity, continue to wait. Because what's the other option except to accept what the adversary has to offer? And when has the adversary ever offered anything that is good? Everything he touches, it dies. Don't let him touch your promise. Don't let him touch your purpose. So in all your waiting, wait on God and wait in the word, because if you don't know the word, you can't know God, and you can't trust who you don't know. So continue to wait.